Hi, this is Rodrigo from Frame Freak Studio, and this is the Creative Hustler Show. Today, our guest is Brian Ajhar. We found him in CTNX last year, and for us, it was quite an experience because it made us realize how many talented people are there in the world that we were not aware of. Brian is one of them. He's a really talented illustrator and character designer, and now he's here to share with us his experience. So welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Rodrigo. Thanks for having me and letting me know. Did we meet each other last year at CTN?
I don't think so. To be honest,
No?
it was it was our first event that
Right.
big, so it was quite a bit overwhelming for us, and we were trying to take everything in, and at the same time we couldn't. So,
Right. So, yeah, I've been to CTN since 2010.
Nice.
So I've been there every year since, I think it started in 2009. And I didn't know about it then. And then I went the first year because I've been a long time illustrator. I've been illustrating for, books and magazines and advertising forever. Had opportunities in the character design world in the mid 90s. And I decided that I wanted to be a book illustrator. And now I'm revisiting and starting to develop a new direction or another direction in the character world. So that's where I am.
Awesome. And for the people who don't know about you, how did you start your career? Was something that you wanted to do since you were a kid, or was something that you took later on in your life?
It's something that I always drew as a child. Influence are vast from my mother reading to me Grimm's fairy tales and television programs that emphasized drawing. There was a local TV channel from out of Philadelphia. I'm from northeastern. I'm near northeastern Pennsylvania. I was across the river, grew up in New Jersey. And there was a program called the Gene London Show that, it was for little kids. I was probably 5, 6 years old watching this program. And it was showing cartoons, and there was a segment of the program where Gene London, the star of the show, did drawings. And he did drawings of Grimm's fairy tales. And I remember as a little kid really being fascinated with, him. He's drawing dragons, and he's describing what's happening in the tale, and he's doing the princess and the villain. I was always attracted to the ugly, villain characters. That was always most interesting to me. So that was like the early memory, and also when I was a kid, Walt Disney was on once a week. You couldn't videotape it, you couldn't DVR it, and you had to be around to that Sunday night to watch Walt present his whatever he was promoting that week. He was showing some of his cartoons, but I always looked forward to times when he went behind the scenes at Disney, and he was interviewing Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson and Mark Davis and all the nine old men, and they would talk about what they're doing. And I was always really fascinated, with that part of it. And that was a very young age. That was 7, 8, 9 years old, and I developed a liking to. It was exciting to me to see the process of what they did. So I can go on. Let me see, what else? Other influences were definitely TV movies. I remember liking the King Kong movies and the stop action Sinbad movies, the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, where it had the Harryhausen, the claymation, the animation characters of the skeletons fighting, and there was this fight scene with the skeletons, and that was all incredible to me. I could watch those over and over, and that was a very big impact when I was young.
And did you choose to go in a career for Like, did you study in the university, or was something that you took on your own?
Yeah, well, what happened was I started drawing. My mother saw an interest in what I did. She bought me art supplies. You know, I would be drawing all the time. And my father owned a business. He was a butcher. And my mother owned her business. She was a hairdresser. And they were right next to the house in a little town. And, you know, you know, I was always drawing. I was always drawing something. I was drawing customers from the store that he was in. I was drawing, you know, people in his bowling team. You know, I progressed and getting, you know, a little better refined. And, you know, but I wasn't interested in a career at that time. No one knew, you know, when you're 12 years old, what you want to do. You know, I was interested in sports. I played sports, and baseball was my game, and I really enjoyed that. And so, you know, anyway, that progressed. I ended up in high school. You know, I was playing sports in high school, and I was getting in trouble for drawing pictures in the back of my notebook. And I remember, you know, having discipline problems, you know, with that area. So, you know, I thought maybe it would be a good idea to join the school newspaper. And I started doing that. And what happened was I was doing drawings of the teachers that were being printed and some of the coaches. And I had to get the drawings approved, you know, from each of them. And I was always interested in distortion and making characters were funny looking. So they didn't all go through, but a lot of them did, and teachers ended up buying some for a couple of bucks here and there. But I remember at that time, something that gave me gratification, drawing and getting excited about getting recognized for doing something that I like doing. And you know, it was kind of a neat thing when you're getting something published and you're getting a response, a positive response from students, you know, looking at your work. And that was the first time I ever had that other than my parents. So that was later on. So anyway, that continued on. I ended up going to a community college for 2 years in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And you know, I had a teacher that was a major impact on me in a painting sense. You know, he showed me for the first time how to set up a palette, you know, how to be aggressive with watercolor, you know, how to let mistakes happen, how not to be afraid. And he was very encouraging. So, you know, at that time, I kind of realized that I wanted to develop a portfolio to get in a professional school. So, so I ended up going, after that, I ended up going to Parsons in New York City. And I was there for 3 years. I mean, there's lots of stories that went on there. I had a lot of great teachers. A couple of teachers I'll mention that had great impact on me. One was Bern Hogarth. He's the guy that did Tarzan, you know, comic strip. And he has all these dynamic anatomy books. I'm sure you've seen his work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had a couple of years of anatomy with him. And then I had another teacher, his name was Dave Paslavagua, who he was an illustrator, but he had a method of teaching that treated he was teaching drawing from the perspective as fine art. And one of his mentors was a California fine art painter, drawer called Rico Lebrun. And Rico Lebrun was a guy that Disney brought in to teach the animators how to draw deer during Bambi. So he was really anatomically a great master at drawing. And you know, what made him different than other teachers I had was that he wasn't worried about drawing likenesses of the model. You know, I had teachers that would show me how to hold the pencil up like this, which I never knew how to do. And, you know, you're measuring the model, and the model's 8 heads high, was a way of measuring, and he didn't do anything like that. And I just didn't understand the other types of drawings. So what he was interested in is it was more expressionistic drawing with believable anatomy. So you're kind of being inventive, you know, with your drawing. You're not copying the model. He was stressing getting the essence of the pose, you know, the gesture of the pose, make it sculptural, exciting drawing, exciting searching lines. And that made a drastic impact on the way I thought about drawing and art, for that matter. So I always gravitated toward liking artists that you can always see their artwork, drawings, and thinking growing underneath the drawing. You know, Daumier, Gustave Doré drawings. You know, you got Chile. You know, there's a long list of influences. Thomas Rawlinson. So yeah, it was a major time, you know, for me to have that growth spurt. So, so that was my college time. What else you want to know?
You just mentioned something that really caught my mind. It's something that I just heard from another artist called Nathan Fox, and that was this concept about seeing the model, but not copying the model, but actually putting like a soul, like imprinting something that you want to imprint into it, and then just take the model and kind of use those lines to mold the core of what you want to communicate.
Right.
However, even though he did give a really good explanation, I think that is still like a very high-end concept. How would you go about it? To not let the model like dictate what you want to draw, and instead of just being able to put that soul into the art?
It takes a lot of looking, and you got to look beyond the proportionate side of the model. You know, the model. I have a problem doing things that are realistic. I can't sit. I've never been excited about like sitting there and drawing a realistic portrait. Or I've done things, but they always seem to die when I do them. And that goes with oil paints and other things. And there are other artists that I see out there that do unbelievable. You know, John Singer Sargent is an example of somebody that can paint the realistic portrait, and it jumps off the page. It's so live, and there are a lot of people that can do it. I guess I never had the interest in trying to develop that skill. How does somebody approach doing that? It really takes a lot of time with the teacher constantly on your back, you know, because it didn't click. It didn't click for months. And you got this guy running around, and all the Parsons graduates who knew him understand. Yeah, he taught at Pratt University, he taught at Pratt Institute also. All the people that had him as a teacher understand what I'm saying, but I can't describe in words how it's done because it's kind of an evolution of what happens. You know, he'll see something in your work and he'll point to it and say, you know, he won't even say anything. He'll just point to it, and you'll know exactly what he means at the time. And it's kind of like you're drawing sculpture into it. You ever see a Henry Moore drawing? Henry Moore, the sculptor.
No,
well, he always brought in and encouraged us to look at sculptors for the figure drawing, because they somehow understood volume and knew what would happen as the pen hits the paper. You're not drawing the surface of the character, you're drawing inside. You're drawing, you know, he used to say something, start with the belly button and work your way out. You know, so but somehow I mean that's part of it. You know, he would also stress doing gesture and the action of the pose and the dynamic action of what was happening with the pose. And he also talked about editing the drawing and not doing a drawing with overall detail that was consistent throughout the whole piece. He wanted you to edit the drawing to what your focal point wanted to go, where it wanted to go. So he always stressed that, and it's something that you can't unlearn. You can't forget it. Even if I try, I can't forget it. So the people that I'm attracted to, masters and drawers, kind of have that same thing going on that I've always tended to like, you know, and he's probably the first guy that inspired that. You know?
Yeah, that is something that is very unique, I think. It doesn't matter about so much as the quality of the illustrations, because there are some illustrators who do like very simple art, and then there are others who do like very complex things.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there is a difference where there is some art where you just have something else, like something that connects, that makes us feel something, in comparison to something that, oh yeah, that looks nice, and that's it.
Right, right. So, yeah. So, okay. So that was in school. Now, getting out of school, it's a lot different than now. In early on, you know, we had like a network of friends that were actually doing it, you know, going out, and used to call pounding the pavement. You ever hear that term? Pounding the pavement?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. I mean, where you have to actually pound the pavement and knock on doors and call people up, and you know, that's how you got appointments. You know, you had to be aggressive. I remember the first time calling up an art director cold, you know, to see if he wanted to, because you had to, the way you found out was you went to the newsstand, and then I was going to be an editorial illustrator. That was my direction. Okay. So you go to the newsstand and you look at magazines and try to look at the articles that you think you'd be interested in doing, and magazines that are using work that's in your genre. Okay. So that's how you got names. You went in there, and there was no internet. There was no other people exchanging names with you other than other students. You know, I didn't know very many professionals. So you went out and you went to the store I went to was at the big magazine store at the Pan Am building in New York City. It was the biggest magazine store in Manhattan, I think, at the time. So you went there and you just devoured the magazines. You're writing down names, and that's how you got contacts. And then you wrote the phone number down that was in the magazine, and then you tried to get an appointment with the art director. That was it, you know. And that was before drop-off policy. You know, then they had a drop-off portfolio policy, you know, years after that. You couldn't even get to meet anybody. But I remember meeting a lot of people and going through, you know, talking to a lot of people, and you go in and you'd say, you think anybody else you know would like to see my work? They'd give you a couple of names, and then the person you went to see gave you a couple more names, and then your database would grow and grow. And that's kind of how it was done. And it was nice because you got in to talk to people, and they would give you feedback one-on-one. And it was a personal approach. It was kind of nice. So old school stuff.
I really love that, because one of the issues that I see with a lot of friends who are artists is that they play this card that they are introverts, that they are shy, and they are pretty scared of sending, let's say, a simple email or a direct message through to a person. And it's crazy for me to think like a couple, if we were like 20 years before, like you wouldn't have a job.
Right.
That's my thinking. And now it's crazy that I can grab this, like going to Instagram, going to direct message. And yeah, definitely it is, because on one side, I think this has gone a little bit harder mentally speaking and emotionally speaking because it is so easy to contact people. There are many people trying to contact it, so you have to put like extra effort thinking about how you're going to approach them.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's like it's never been this easy. It's like I just sent you an email. I found your work through the CTNX book. Went to your site, was amazed. Sent you an email, and we're doing this interview. And I'm in another country. Like before,
it's pretty cool. You have to think about it. That's really cool. You know, you're from El Salvador.
Yes.
El Salvador.
Yes.
You're the only person I know from El Salvador.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
And a couple of years before, like we were completely locked. Like we were doing TV ads for local brands here because that was the closest thing to animation that we will come close. It's like that's the only thing available here. And I had the same issue as you. Like I was in a school and making drawings in the notebooks and getting problems about that because in this country was like this thematic, like if you are an artist, you're going to die. Like you're not going to have any food or anything like that.
You'll starve, right?
Yeah, right. And now that's the like this career has become like the most stable thing in my country. And it's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. That's great. But back to the being shy about things. I remember the first time I called somebody that I didn't know, and I was like, I was like shaking. You know, it was hard to do that. Even from the phone, you know, and then you get over it, and you move on, and you know, things start to happen, and you start getting jobs, and you eventually develop a point of view, you know, from working, which happens, you know, happened to me, you know. So when you're in school, you have a slight point of view, you have a direction, but you really don't know how you think until you work on a lot of things under pressure, because then it starts to really come out how you think. You know, when you get an article, in a magazine, it took time to develop, you know, your thought process and how you interpret, and you don't want to be the kind of an artist that an art director would say, well, I have an idea for you. You want to be the kind of artist that takes that idea and takes it to another direction that's better than what the art director thinks or expects. And you know, that's kind of what you do early on to soul search. You know, you try to find out things that you have a passion about, things you like to draw. How can I bring a metaphor into my work to illustrate a contemporary problem? You know, and for me, it was like going to fairy tales and you know, historical things, and because a lot of clients I had early on were, you know, I had like a successful direction going in a market for business, you know, because business was very popular at the time. Magazines, like Forbes magazine and Worth magazine. So it was exciting to see. Yeah, and you try to stay in touch with people that you graduated with. Peter DeSev and I are friends, and we've been friends he went to Parsons also. And early in our career, we actually lived in the same building and for several years, you know, like maybe 3-4 years, I think about. But, you know, we used to discuss ideas and trade off books and you know, we had bookstores that we would go to. The Strand bookstore was one of the best bookstores in New York City, and it had all these old out of print books that you know, we would go there and pick up, and you know, oh, you know, I saw that one first, you know, that kind of thing. So it's kind of nice to have that competitive thing early in the career. It was good. So
yes. And now I think there was maybe a down moment, but at this point in life, I think, well, everything is like saying that art related jobs are going to be like the stable things, like creativity is going big for the new industries. Like most people are saying that business, creativity, and technology are going to be the things for at least the next 10 years. And definitely I have seen like for us, like a couple of years ago was a little bit harder to get projects, and now they are even coming to us like through Google and things like that, and we have seen like a surge of this type of jobs. How do you what difference do you see, and what opportunities do you see in this economy now for artists and illustrators and such?
It's been pretty good for me. I don't always do one. I'm not doing just one direction now. So what's happened in my career was I went from magazines, mostly magazines, you know, then advertising started to come into the picture in the mid 80s to late 80s through the 90s. I got more and more of that, and then started doing children's books in 1990. I have 14 children's books, you know, from that period on to right now. So I never had one direction that I relied on so much. And I would say most recently, although I've had character design work, you know, in the 90s, I've had it, you know, throughout my career at different times for television or something else. I started to get more and more since I've been going to CTN, because it opened up a new market for character design for animation, which is kind of where I want to head to now. I'm kind of going more and more in that direction. And as it stands, I seem to be getting busier as time goes on, and I keep doing more, and other people get to know me and my work. So I mean, that's exciting. You know, you're never finished if you keep going in a direction and trying to constantly, you're growing your art and you're trying to get better, and there's always ways to find new avenues, you know, for what you do. If you know, once you find what you do. As far as the climate for people, I think it's for young artists. I think you just have to continue to just keep learning and keep having your art grow. Try to find your own distinctive point of view. Influences are good. It's good when you have a lot of artists that that affect your work, that have input in your work, that influence your work. I wouldn't be afraid of doing that, but eventually the more you do, the more you work, the more you observe life, the more you bring your personal situations in life into your work, it's going to grow into your own perspective on life. And that's kind of how I look at things.
Nice. Also, looking at your website, I found out like you have done a lot of books. Like, I know even writers who have been who I consider that they made a lot of books, and it's not even close to this number. So.
Well, some of those are book covers. You know, they're not books I illustrated the whole, but I did. I think I have 14. I did children's books, whole books, but some of those were covers of books. So yeah, you know, the book market's, you know, it's that's changing too. I mean, I have an agent who represents me in magazine, advertising, and book covers, but I do children's books and the animation, character design, all that stuff myself. And they always give a synopsis of what they think was happening in the market, which mostly came out in the 90s when the internet started to invade the market. A lot of the artists that were represented by my agent were having a hard time, you know, including myself, because you weren't getting the same type of work in the magazine or advertising area. So what happened was the internet was taking the advertising eyeballs out of the magazine, So they were getting advertising was more happening on the internet. So when the advertising budget is cut, for the magazines, the artwork's the first to go. So that's kind of what happened for a while, and it seems to be coming back a little bit more now. But yeah, it was a strange time for illustration.
Yeah, even in books in general, I know a couple of artists who are writers, and one of the massive change that they had to deal with was that eventually, thanks to the internet, they were getting there was this method now to prove that if the book was going to sell books or something like that. So now writers have to have their blogs and they have to create their own following. And now that they have databases of, I don't know, 200,000 emails and things like that, then that way it becomes a little bit easier for them to get published. But if they don't have the database, if they do not have the internet fame or something like that, it becomes harder for them to get the deals to publish the books. So I think that, the internet is definitely changing a lot of things, and it still does, because it's not this changes and this stays this way. It keeps changing, and we have to adapt to it.
Well, back to your statement about, getting the database. If you're getting hundreds of thousands of people following you, you can bypass a publisher. You could do a Kickstarter and probably make just as much money, as what the publisher gives you. So, I mean, you'll have a different type of distribution, but then, why couldn't you do the publisher later? Yeah, that's what you can do now with the internet. I mean, it's amazing, what it is. So.
Yeah, Lois, another artist, she's just announcing her second book, I think. For Kickstarter, because again she has a massive following of people, and that's pretty much how she managed to get a lot of deals in the movie industry. She didn't even have to pitch it; she just became internet famous, and the deals came to her. And it was for me it was crazy, because I remember the startings of the internet in Deviant community, everybody. Doing their art, and there were some amazing artists in Deviant. That was the dream back then. Oh, I hope this gets to the point where this following can help us get good deals, and now I think it's finally happening.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, no one knows where it's going to go, and I mean, if you could promote yourself online, if you do good work, and I'm looking. I just started doing Instagram really for the past, I guess, 8 months. I opened it in 2012, but I think I added 3 posts in 4 years. and I've been going on it now. And you do build an audience, even though I have a very small one compared to, most people on there. It's kind of it gives you a good gauge of what is liked, because there are things that seem to be popular that I've done, I didn't think that they would be that popular. You know what I mean? I thought it would be I'm getting a different impression of what people like about my work. You get an immediate response instead of waiting for the magazine to come out. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's exciting. I like it. I like the internet. I like technology. It's fun.
Also,
social networking.
Also, I wanted to ask you about your career in character designer, because this is a career that many artists want. It's the thing that I think, if I hear a lot of my friends, every now and then I hear somebody who wants to become a background designer or something like that, but mostly wants to become a character designer. What can you tell us about this career? And mostly, what do you think people are not seeing about the career that they should be aware of?
What aren't they seeing about the career?
Yeah, I think many people think they are cool, but that the career itself is cool. But I definitely see that there is a huge difficulty there, because if I take pro character designers like yourself or Stephen Silver, they do a lot of designs for one character, and then I take I see somebody who wants to join this career, and they are doing maybe a third of what other artists are doing. So.
Hmm. I don't know. I don't know if there's an answer. You know, there's no quick answer to, you know, why somebody gets more than others. In a way, I mean, with me, you know, it was persistence basically. I mean, I was called before. I'm always up for more than what I get, but that's good. I think that's a good thing. You have opportunities that may be happening. I think a lot of it has to do with the comfort that a client would have working with you. I think that's part of a thing. I think there's a lot of people in the industry that are develop a consistent pattern of working with people in the industry, and then I think it's a comfort level to build the team for specific animation, people that they get along with. They don't want any surprises, you know. And then there's probably this unusual, rare occasion where they bring somebody else in. I think that seems to be what I see in the process of hiring character. You know, there's a lot of really great top character people that have a tremendous track record. So they're going to be on the top of a list of you know, whatever movie's going, pretty much. And then I'm sure they have a list that keeps going. If you're a young character designer, and there are, you know, I see all these brilliant people on Facebook and Instagram that are incredible. You know, I don't know what their ages are, but I think a lot of them are new. And I'm like, God, how do you do that? When I was in school, I had no clue, you know what I was doing. And I think the internet helps you get educated. And I think if you're going to I don't even know what the right schools are now for getting into animation, probably Cal Arts and a few other ones. But you know, it's school. I don't think school is going to get you work. I think you're going to get you work. You know, the individual is going to get themselves work. And I think it has to do with staying motivated. You know, you're always growing with your art. I have a 10-point thing I wrote down, actually, because I never remember what I was going to say. But I'm gonna just share this because I wrote it for this because I knew you'd ask me something like that. So, you know, if you're growing as a young artist, I would go in a direction, try to pick things, you know, do what you love doing. The primary thing is you're doing what you love doing. And it's got to be something that excites you. You have to be doing, if you're the kind of illustrator that likes to do robots, then make it the best robot. Go into that and really study mechanics and understand how things are made. And, you know, that's just an example. Something that I'm aware of, and it also helped me, was, you know, be open, you know, to all the experiences you have in life. It's not about sitting home, locking yourself in your bedroom or your studio and just drawing all the time. You have to bring in some things that happen outside your existence of art. And you have to make it part of your life to observe people, and you have to observe things that are going on in life. And because all these things affect, you know, how you interpret a problem, or it could be a little expression of somebody. It could be something that, you know, just it triggers off an idea when you're trying to do something subtle with the gesture of a character's hand. You know, so you're always studying when you're going out. Another thing would be, don't be afraid to be influenced. I think we talked a little bit about that, but I think that when you're influenced, like a big influence of mine, one of my influences was Ronald Searle and Jack Davis. Jack Davis was a big influence. And I remember when I was young and I was copying Jack Davis drawings and I was looking at his work and trying to understand how he draws these funny characters moving around. And it doesn't mean that you're going to become Jack Davis, but it's good to go through and study the people that that inspire your work. For some reason, they inspire you. Study them. It's important also to be competitive. Some people, and I've taught at a lot of schools. I've taught at Syracuse University of the Arts in Philly, FIT, and University of Hartford. Part-time teacher. And I've always noticed in classes that there are certain people that kind of are maybe a little bit more shy. But I've also seen people that are shy that are incredibly competitive, you know, that wanna produce, and they're trying to bring in the best work in the class. And that was always exciting for me because, you know, some of the people you didn't expect to be competitive ended up to be the most competitive, you know. And I think it's really important for a young artist to have that little thread of competition and thrive on it. I think it's a really important thing because the business is, as you know, it thrives on competition. I mean, everybody is competing with everybody, and it makes better work. It really does. You know, people expand their expectations when they are looking at, you know, their competition. Telling stories with your art is another important thing. When I always give a couple of examples. One example I think about is if you're going out to the mall or you're sitting in the park, play games with yourself. You know, when you're looking, it doesn't always have to be drawing people. You can be sketching, but instead of sketching one character and what the character is doing, look at the whole environment and look at the interaction of multiple characters that are going on. So the example of that would be if I was sitting in the park on a park bench, I'm not necessarily drawing, but I'm looking, you know, observing, and I'm seeing a family, a couple, you know, and the couple is pushing a stroller, and inside the stroller is a little baby, and next to the stroller is another little kid with a balloon, and he's walking down, or he's got an ice cream cone, and he's walking down, and there's like multiple stories going on within this story. And then there's a guy walking a dog going into them, and this dog is growling at I mean, there's all kinds of stories that you can make up. What's going to happen when the interaction happens? You know, you're actually giving yourself ideas, trying to invent stories of these interactions happening around you, and they didn't happen yet. And you can make up things. And it's always been exciting for me to look at people and try to imagine what they're talking about, and by the gestures, and look at those little gestures, hand gestures, or little attitudes that happen that create storytelling. You know, it's kind of a way of life. You're looking at things and you're trying to invent ideas as you're looking at things. Is that clear, or am I rambling?
No, yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay. You know, those are some pretty important things, I think. Understand your strengths and nurture your strengths. You know, if you're great at drawing women, not a lot of, I mean, I always had a hard time drawing beautiful women. They would always come out ugly, and men too. You know, I'm more interested in drawing an unattractive guy. In fact, all my work is unattractive. Yeah. So I'm not the guy to do a romance cover of a beautiful guy and a beautiful girl. I'm not that guy. But if you are, nurture it and you know, try to be the best at it. Practice a lot and stay motivated. A lot of that idea about staying motivated is understanding that somebody else is motivated out there that's competing with you. And I always had that as kind of a thing that really kept me pushing. You know, that was, sometimes it's not enough to just compete with yourself. You know, you want other things to give you a little kick. You know, and I don't know how you think or other people, but you have to find that thing to give you the little kick in the pants that get you going. Maybe it's not the motivation thing with competition. Maybe it's another thing. You want to be the best at doing a particular thing, but that's what you should be thinking, striving for. You know, never giving up. You know, putting these things, most of these things together and practicing these things are important in developing your perspective on life and your perspective, point of view in your art. You know, when you have a point of view in life and if you see things in a funny manner or humor, I see things in a humorous manner all the time. I don't really do dark artwork and frightening artwork. My artwork's either goofy or somehow there's a little twist to it or something that makes you feel good or a little happier or I mean, that's kind of what excites me. You know, I want to see the humor in people and animals and life. It makes me happier. There's enough things that aren't funny, you know. So as you know, we all know, right? So that's my perspective on a few things.
Now, something that I catch from you, and this is another topic that is very prevalent in art, is that if people want to become professional artists, they gotta learn at least the basics of business and all this knowledge that will allow them to get the jobs, the work, the freelancer, or the business itself if they want to create one, like on our case. And something that I see a lot of artists is that, well, art, as you know it takes a lot of time to get good at it. It is really hard to do. And on the other side, like business also takes a lot of time to get good at it and also is really hard to do. And trying to balance those things out is really hard for many people who most of the time they are not well balanced towards going into the business side and they just focus on becoming good artists. What will be your, since you come from this era before internet where you actually had to go and hustle and do the cold calls and all this, I think you have like a huge edge over most people about this type of topic. So what would be your advice towards the new generations on learning about the business skills that allow them to get the work?
Well, if I have the edge, it's because I made all the mistakes in the past. So I'm trying not to make them again. But yeah, I mean, you kind of, I mean, I'm sure you could take classes and just talk to people about the business side of things. I'm sure professionals would welcome young artists calling them up. I've been called up many times by different artists asking me questions about budgets and, you know, what about this job? What do you think? You know, rights and stuff. But I certainly made my share of mistakes. And, you know, underpricing yourself, somebody, you know, buying your artwork, there are certain things you should do, certain things you shouldn't do. Work for hire is something that was always a negative in the illustration industry. And now, you know, when you do animation, it's often work for hire. You know, it's just the way it is. I mean, clients, they're not going to give you royalties on anything, and they don't want you to have any rights to the work. You know, when you do character design, it's kind of the way it is. But so advice I would give would be to research as much as you can on a particular job. Ask people, you know, privately online that are artists. Go to artists you think that would have the answers, and I'm sure that would help. It would help. I don't think a lot of people would say, no, I'm not going to help you. Why not? Why not help? You know, I think there's also events like CTN Expo and even Comic-Con. I remember having things about, you know, having lawyers talking about, you know, artist rights and things like that. There's, you know, the access is there. You just have to look for it and find it, you know. Is there any other type of more specific thing you were talking about with young artists?
Mostly about like, well, since we have to talk about the shy people before, there is also just the people who maybe are just afraid of trying to make the first contacts. And I can kind of relate to that, because in the beginning I was a little bit afraid, but I keep sending emails for these interviews, for example, and people keep saying yes. And the more, and something that I saw was that it was really harder to start, and now it has become really easy because we have like the portfolio, we have all these things. The website in the beginning was horrible in the beginning,
Right.
and now it's good looking. But definitely, I think in the beginning it's harder, and as you keep doing things more and more, it gets easier to do. So, what advice would you give to the people who are just afraid of starting to make the first contacts?
I would say go to one of these big events and meet people, because you're going to meet people in the same boat as you. A lot of people go to these things. You go to lectures. You're watching professionals talking about the business. You know, and then they have a question and answer at the end of it, and it's pretty exciting that this kind of thing exists, because it didn't exist when I was, you know, for a long time in my business. Very, very rarely. There were things at Society of Illustrators in New York. They had, you know, artists talking and stuff, but you know, it wasn't as detailed and expansive as a CTN Expo. You know, the variety of stuff they talked about. And I don't remember many people talking about the business side. You know, that was just, you know, you had to learn it in trade magazines, you know, that happened at the time. You know, Communication Arts, How magazine, Step by Step. They had articles on the business side of it. So you have to find, you know, what what you need, you know. But I think that most people would be kind enough to talk to you if you had a question. I think they would.
Also, talking about the events, what would be your advice in order to go into these events and make the most of it?
CTN? Well,
yes.
I mean, you don't even have to go to it. You can see all the lectures on the internet. You can see everything that happens there. And then if you decide to go to it, then that's, you know, you'll be one up on the game. It's pretty big. It's like a Comic-Con for animation. I'm still overwhelmed when I go there, and I'm an exhibitor. You know, I show my work there, and it's overwhelming. It just is. It's constant people coming over and talking, and you know, there's lines of people getting signed by other artists, and it's just outrageous. You know, it's a great thing. But you can meet anybody you want in the industry. Is there? They're all there. If you're into animation, that I can't imagine you not going there, because it's that big. Well, you went last year, right, for the first time?
Yes.
So, you know, it's how do you give somebody advice on it? It's huge, and you do your best. There's ways to research. I even think there's blogs that people tell you, or YouTube videos. People tell you the best way to handle CTN and what to do, and you know, my experience there and what you shouldn't do. And so I think it's all there. You just have to find it. But if they do go, they have to see me. They have to come to my table.
Will do. Definitely. I'm really sure that there were many moments at last year where there was someone really important next to me and I didn't even have an idea.
Yeah.
Like that. That was like that was the level of overwhelm that we were at the moment.
Right, right, right. Well, I'm the same way because I'm in awe of certain people there, and every year I meet somebody new, and it's like it's so cool. You know, you're meeting all these people who, you know, you've admired for such a long time, and it's great. It's really nice. It's a nice group. It's a nice community of artists. You know, very giving artists. From what I see from an outside world, I'm not a studio guy, so I'm seeing it from freelance. So I like it. I like it. So.
Also, there is a question that I like to ask all the people that I interview,
Okay.
and this is a bit hard, but pretty much it goes this way. Imagine that you wake up tomorrow in another dimension, and nobody knows you, so you have to start your reputation from ground zero. You have $500, but you have all the knowledge and skills you have right now. What would you do to get a job or work or to get into this position as fast as possible?
Oh, geez. $500. Do I have a house? Do I have a place to stay?
Yeah.
First thing I do is try to find a place to stay. Boy, $500, huh? And I don't have a portfolio with me, right? I'd have to recreate the portfolio.
Yes.
Well, that's what I would probably have to do. I'd use the $500. I'd go to the art store, you know, and then I'd need paper and some paints and, you know, whatever else. I won't have a cell phone, so I'm gonna have to pay cash. I won't have credit cards, right? So $500 would pretty much buy very little. It'd be enough to buy the art supplies, but I wouldn't be able to afford a portfolio. Right? I wouldn't be able to afford a presence online because I won't have a computer. It's tough. I don't know. So anyway, if I had the phone, if I would borrow a phone and you know, put stuff online on Instagram or something, I guess that would be a good thing. I don't know. Takes time. I mean, people don't see people anymore. When you're young, you can't pick up the phone and say, "Hey, can I show you some work?" I don't think that happens anymore, does it?
No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so maybe $1,000 or maybe $2,000 would help. You know, it'd help you create a portfolio and art supplies, and you know, 500's tough, I think. Yeah.
When I went into Europe, because for our country, like El Salvador, is really small, so meeting in person still happened here. And I was thinking that there was still value into meeting each other in person, which it kind of does. But what I found out in Europe and in Los Angeles as well, it was that the distances are so huge that nobody wants to take like the trouble anymore. So they jump directly into Skype. Like that's faster for many of them. And I found like, okay, like, yeah, there is events that I can go for free and meet people, but mostly definitely I could have done it from just the computer and losing a little bit of fear in order to contact these people. And that was kind of the realization that I had when I was there, that maybe it was a little bit easier to get started.
Right.
Also, is there any last tip that you would like to give to young artists and people who are starting out that we haven't mentioned so far?
Any words of advice?
Yes, that we haven't mentioned so far in this interview.
The words of advice. I don't know if it's really advice, but if you're pursuing an art career and you go in that direction, and I know from experience, it's one of the most rewarding things you can do in your lifetime. And you know, I'm still excited about where I'm going and the future of what's happening. And I've been doing this since 1980, so it doesn't get tired. And I think it has to do with always looking forward to something, always making your art grow and making the art yours, and it's not something that it's not something you do. It's part of who you are. Is what you should be striving for, and it's a rewarding thing. It's a rewarding experience. And I was discussing things with my kids and my wife, and we're talking about, like, what are you gonna do when you retire? I'm not retiring. I want to be doing this when I'm 95. I mean, hopefully I'll get better. I'm always looking at my work, and I'm never happy with stuff. I never look at my work and I'm say, wow, I've reached the pinnacle. I'm never happy with it. I'm always like, I just should have stopped there, and I went a little bit too far. That's kind of the way I look at my work. So it's kind of nice to have that to look forward to.
Yeah, I think something, when I think, for example, into sport athletes, that once they have this amazing talent and doing what they do, and then they are 35 and they are done, and we can go into the 90s, like business people or artists can go into the 90s and still do amazing things.
Right.
That puts a lot into perspective.
Right. And we'll be in our 90s and we won't even make 1/10 of what the athlete makes.
Also true, but still, like, for example, I see this guy Hayao Miyazaki, that he went into retirement, and then he goes into making another movie, and then goes into retirement again, and then he goes again into doing another movie, and it's like, stop lying to yourself, man. Like, right. You're still going to be doing this thing until you die. So right. That's what I do.
Yeah. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You got to like what you do. And, if you're an artist out there listening, find that thing that you really love to do and do it better than anybody else. Try to do it better than anybody else. And see where it goes. You'll find yourself.
So, also, if people want to find you online, where can they do so?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Ajhar Art. Ajhar Art. Ajhar Art. And then Brian Ajhar is my Facebook. It's my name. Okay?
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks a lot for giving us a little bit of your time and your advice. It's really appreciated, and I had a really great time learning from your experience.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Rodrigo. And I'll see you at CTN.
Definitely.
Oh, good. That's awesome. So I'll look for this online somewhere in the internet world. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
This has been the last episode from the Creative Hustler Show. If you have liked it, please click the like button in the video, in the YouTube video below, and also please share this interview with all your friends. Until next time.